Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Howard's UFO Chronicles. This is episode 2. My guest this evening is Eric, a young entrepreneur from the south of Ireland. He's got a keen passion for both personal and social transformation, driven by curiosity and a desire to explore the unknown. Eric brings a unique perspective to today's UFO conversation, connecting the dots between expanded awareness and open-minded inquiry and the journey towards true freedom. Eric, buddy, good to see you. How are you?
Likewise, Howard. Thanks for having me on the show.
And thanks for being here. It's great to have you. Eric, let's just shoot the breeze. We've known each other a few years. I consider you a very good friend, highly intelligent guy, an entrepreneur, as I've said. Eric, how did you first get into UFOs, the whole UFO community and all that's UFO? Where did your journey begin?
Yeah, well, it all started when I was 16 years old, and I had kind of like a catalyst moment, you would say, in my life, a spiritual awakening, and it was actually a DVD that I watched, and basically how this DVD came about was it still puzzles my mind today. So I was in my family home when I was young. I was looking in my bookshelf and I came across this little skinny DVD. The ones that like back in the day when they were like a pirate copy almost.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
weren't like the fat, thick DVD cases. It was a very skinny one. And inside it, I don't think it had a name on it or anything like that. And I just popped it in the DVD player. And it was basically, I didn't know it at the time what it was, but now I know what it is today. And it was the 2001 congressional hearing that Dr. Stephen Greer did, where
All right.
he had a panel of experts and military people and through his disclosure project. And he was basically briefing Congress, which was actually I think it was the largest watched conference, basically, or the
Of the
National
National
Press
Press
Club in
Club,
the
that's
world at
right.
the time.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
you saw
and
this DVD and you said that it was a transfer. Sorry, I'll let you keep going and then I'll ask you a question. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I mean, so before I kind of go into, I suppose the video itself or the DVD, like how the DVD came about was still a mystery to me, because I asked my dad, I I knew my mom and my brothers and sisters were like didn't belong to them, because they always mocked me about being into aliens long after that. But and I asked my dad directly and he was like, I have no idea. He's like, it's not mine. So I don't know whose this was. So like still to this day, I really don't. Did someone or something place it there? I don't know.
Okay.
And the other weird thing is, like, obviously, I was very excited that I just seen this, and I told one of my friends at the time, I was like, "Oh my god, you got to see this!" And I gave him the DVD, and then I asked it back maybe a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, and he said it disappeared, couldn't find it,
Right.
so it was just gone, and I
And
could
had
never
you
see it
any
again. And
interest
I
in
remember I spent years.
sorry, had you any interest in
I don't
UFOs
think I did.
before you saw this DVD?
No, I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did.
And
And
you said it was
in the DVD, obviously, it was.
and you said it was a
Sorry.
transformative moment. How did you feel when you were watching that DVD? Can you remember back? You were saying it was transformative. How did you feel watching it? What can you remember what that transformative feeling was like?
I can remember. So it was. I decided to kind of. I was like almost watching it in secret, and I put it on the DVD. The DVD was under the stairs, so I was sitting up against the screen, and my legs crossed, and I was just watching and taking all this in. It was probably maybe 3 hours long, and there was these very like well put together people, high up officials, and they were all speaking to Congress, very level headed people, and they were talking about extraterrestrials and crafts and this, that, and the other, all different projects that all these different military people were in, and So I just took all of this as truth, and because it looked true to me. And I was like, well, if this is true and nobody else is talking about it, what else don't I know? And that moment just sent me down for the next few years, like down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. I couldn't get enough of research, and I think I stayed up to maybe 5, 6 a.m. every morning researching. And I actually couldn't wait till the summertime when I finished school, because I actually could just stay up really late and just start researching and going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole. And I probably did that for about 5 or 6 years until I actually burnt myself out and I said, I can't do this anymore. But that kind of allowed me to digest all of that information that I kind of researched over the years. And I suppose it defined me today, and how I think nowadays.
Wow. Okay. So that got you on the path. And sorry, how old were you again at this stage? You started with
I was
16,
16 going on 17.
17, and you were what, about 22 or 3 by the time you'd done all that research?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. And okay, so the spark is lit, you're on fire with this, you've done loads of research. What happened next? When did you have your first experience, or where did the path lead you from there?
I suppose I was just I got really into it. Was watching documentaries, and I think the History Channel was a good show to watch because it always had something UFO related to it. So I was always watching Ancient Aliens and all the other shows that they had going at the time. And I just thought they were fascinating as well, and learning about how ETs not only are, here in today's world, but they had a presence right through ancient culture, through many cultures. And there's all cultures basically have talked about them. They've had depictions of them, writings of them, so ETs have basically had a presence throughout human evolution, which is pretty fascinating.
Okay. And from there, can you remember? I know you've said to me in the past you've had a number of experiences, a number of sightings, and that. When was your first? Can you remember?
So my first one was with you, actually, when we met for our first C5.
Okay.
And I suppose for the viewers that don't know what a C5 is, it stands for Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind. Okay. And it was an initiative actually set up by Dr. Stephen Greer. And basically it's where you can initiate peaceful contact with ETs with your consciousness. And you do it as a group, a meditative group. And basically it's sending out peaceful intentions, and the ETs pick up on this, and sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. And yeah, it's an amazing experience. And obviously that's how we met, and that's how we met all our amazing group and all the people in it.
And just for the viewers, when did you and I first meet? Can you remember? Because your head is better for detail than mine. When did we first meet? Or how did we first get in contact? It was through the app, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. So I think it must have been 2020.
Okay.
Maybe 2020. Yeah. I don't think it was before that, but yeah, 2020 onwards. Yeah.
Because I had texted a few people on the app. So just for the viewers, Stephen Greer has an app. It's called the CE5 app. You can download it, and there's 2 parts to the app. So there's Contact, where it plays these binary tones, and it talks you through a meditation on how to connect with the ETs using, as you say, Eric, your conscious mind. And then there's the second part to the app called Contact. Network, where you can text anybody through the app who's downloaded the app. So I text a few people, and lucky for me, you happen to be one of the people that I text. And we formed a group on, initially it was WhatsApp, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And I think we were probably texting for about a year because COVID had just started then at that stage. I mean, we were a good
Yeah, it
year, I'd
was
say,
just before
texting and
COVID.
chatting. Yeah. Then COVID hit,
Mm.
and it was during. I think it was during the first lockdown that we all met, or it was just towards the end of the first lockdown. It was during the summer of 2020, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when we went wild camping in the Slieve Bloom Mountains. There's about, I don't know, there must have been a
Yeah.
good 12 or 14 of us at least, I'd say, camping. Good fun.
Yeah.
Uh,
Completely in the middle of nowhere, in a field, in the Midlands of Ireland, just nothing but fields all around us. But we were at a high point, though, weren't we? So it was almost like we were on a hill, and you could
yeah,
just see
the
fields
view
as
was
far as
great.
the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
so we met, we pitched up a few tents, we lit a fire, we were telling a few stories, and then we started the meditation. And I don't know if you remember what happened to me during the meditation. I just remember somebody started playing the app, and the binary tones were played for a few minutes, and the next thing, they start playing the meditation, and the next thing,
yeah.
I'm looking around and everybody's roaring, laughing. I'm like, what? Why is everybody laughing? And then it dawned on me, I had fallen asleep and started snoring. As I do, I'd
Yeah.
sleep at the drop of a hat, and I woke up to everybody laughing at me. That was awful funny. Uh,
Yeah.
but
No,
yeah, we
everyone was trying to hold it together. I remember everyone was trying to hold it together and not snigger, and then just everyone burst out laughing.
and it took me a minute. Dawn. It took me a minute to dawn. Like, why is everybody laughing? And then, of course, yeah, okay, I must have fallen asleep, and I must have been snoring because I snore very heavy. Um, so yeah, so we saw a couple of things in the sky that night. It wasn't, I suppose, it wasn't earth shattering, but we saw a few bits in the sky. And then the next meditation, or the next time we met up, was at my home in Galway, and we were in the garden, and again lit a fire, and we had a couple of drinks. And I know Stephen Greer always recommends that you don't drink when you're trying to contact the ETs, but we had a bit of a light show that night, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We did. I remember orange orbs, and one specifically, there was an orb that came really low flying over your house. And we were all standing up and we were like, look, look, look. And it was just, yeah, it was very illuminated. And, definitely not a drone, or obviously not a star, because it was so
No.
low.
And as we were talking, I can put up a video when I'm doing the edit, and show the viewers what we saw, what we were looking at. As we took a good few videos, he must have passed overhead, I'd say at least 8 or 10 times.
Yeah, I like, maybe it was the amount of drinks that we had that night, but I can't remember exactly.
Well, I know I've at least 6 or 7 videos of him passing overhead on my phone, and I know he did pass a good few times, and I think in the end we just stopped recording. But then there was flashes, wasn't there? There was different color flashes in the sky, and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, the flashes were actually very interesting. Definitely very interesting, because I think people were saying, give me a flash," and then boom, it illuminated and then went down. So yeah, I never seen a satellite or anything do something like that. So
Yeah,
it was
no, I
crazy.
mean, it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. It was a fantastic night. Um, okay, so that was the next C5 meetup that we did. Well, you've had a couple of experiences on your own, haven't you? Can you talk us through those?
Yeah, so I had a pretty crazy one, and I never, in a million years thought I'd have an experience like this, where I actually saw a physical craft, and it was right over my head, like a triangular craft right over my head. So I suppose I'll start at the start. It was a Friday evening, and we were just finished work, and me and my friend decided, to go out for one or two cocktails, had a long week, and we were having our drinks or whatever, had two max, because we had something on the next day. So I think we were walking home maybe at about 10 o'clock at night, and we decided to take a shortcut through our town park. And it was such a clear night. Like, I'm talking no clouds in the sky, stars everywhere. It was just beautiful. So we were constantly just looking up while walking through the park. And, you know, the conversation just naturally went on. I think I asked my friend, I was like, you know, if aliens landed, would you get on board? If they like invited you to show you around the solar system, and we were kind of like, I don't know, I don't think so, no. And then I was like, well, what if they guaranteed to you that they'd bring you back? Would you go then? And we both said yes at the exact same time. And I shit you not, at the moment we said yes at the exact same time together, this craft appeared right over our heads out of the trees and just came right over our heads. It was a triangular craft, about half the size of a football field. So it was massive. And there, I could see the church in the distance. So it was lower than the pointy part of the church. And it was lower than that. So it was really close over our heads. And this was ginormous, you know. And I was jumping up and down with joy. I was extremely excited, you know. I was like, Dan. I was like, do you see it? Do you see it? And my friend was just like stiff as a bone, and he just wasn't saying anything. And you know, obviously it was taking a while for him to register and process what he was witnessing.
He was in shock, was he?
He was 100% in shock, yeah, without a doubt. But yeah, you could see like his just words were slow, and he was just slow to process everything and just take it all in, you know. I found it really exciting, you know. It blew my mind, and I was just so excited. But like the craft itself, I'll just describe a little bit about it. So it was, you have a photo that I sent you. I think we decided to do a sketch of it, just so our memory was fresh and things like that. But the craft was completely triangular, and it had jagged edges, and it had 8 giant lights, 4 on either side. And they weren't like normal lights now. They were very kind of dim and dim lights, not like really bright lights. And yeah, it was just unbelievable. I knew straight away it was out of this world. And, you know, we contemplated a long time afterwards, you know, did we actually see extraterrestrials, or was this a man-made, reverse engineered, you know, craft? And
which do you think it
I
was?
forgot to add as well that I think it was ETs without a doubt, because of the fact there's consciousness related effect that
and they appeared
immediately. Like, that's impossible. You know,
did you see any seams on the craft? You know, like rivets
no.
and seams? No. And what color were the
I'll
lights?
be honest, the lights would have been like a whitish yellow, I would say. More yellow, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. And I mean,
as far as rivets and stuff like that, it was probably too dark to see that. You know, it potentially could have, but I definitely didn't see any. You know,
was there any noise coming from the craft?
no, not at all. Because about 10 seconds after it left, we started hearing a helicopter, and then really high up in the sky, much higher than the craft, was a helicopter. Then we could see it, and it had about 3 searchlights kind of shining in that direction, like down on us basically, but almost like it was following the craft. And the lights were like white, red, and green or something. So my thoughts were, you know, I think it was maybe UK military, you know,
following
because
the ET.
I am familiar following the ET. Yeah, so obviously they picked it up on radar. They were tracking it, and it was going towards the United States as well, that direction. So, Yeah, I'd
And
say it was UK military without a doubt.
and
Because
did the
I'm used to
helicopter?
aircraft.
Did the helicopter follow it? Did it go out after it?
Yeah, it was definitely following it, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. And I'm used to seeing other aircraft as well. I work on an army base, and I work on an army base which is next to a hospital. So we see like, helicopters coming in for the hospital and stuff like that. I've seen helicopters, like there's a rich guy in who lives in the town. He owns a helicopter. This was a completely different type of helicopter. I could tell, and by the lights and everything, it was just different.
Okay.
But yeah, crazy stuff. It was
Okay.
it was something, that never leave my mind to the day I die. Yeah,
Oh no! I mean, when you have that kind of experience, it's life changing, it's life altering, isn't it? Did I ever tell
it
you about the
is.
experience
It
I
is.
had with? Funnily enough that you say that, but I had an experience with a triangular craft too a couple of years ago. So I was down in Limerick, and I was visiting a friend, and I think it was around April time, early April, and I was coming home, driving on the motorway. I think maybe 10 o'clock at night, and way off in the distance, I don't know, maybe 2 miles ahead, I could see an overpass. Now it was dark, but I could make out the overpass. But right above the overpass, there was it looked like a star, you know. And I was looking. I said, "Is that them?" You know, I mean, I'd had quite a number of UFO encounters at this stage, you know. So I I, I wasn't freaked out, if you know what I mean. And I was looking, I saw the
Mhm.
light. I said, is that them? And I thought, nah, no, it's not. But as I was driving closer, the light was getting brighter and bigger. I said, geez, it is them, you know. And all of a sudden, the lights split into three, you know. So there was three lights, and it was like one. As I got closer, I could make out it was a triangular craft, and there was a light on each tip, or just under each tip, you know. Hence the three lights.
Mhm.
And it was just sitting there, floating silently, maybe 20 feet above the overpass. So maybe 40 feet in the air, if even that. And I
Mhm.
pull into the hard shoulder. I'm 40 feet away from it. And I'm looking at it now. If you look out your front door and you're looking at your car, I'm looking at it like that. I can see it that clearly. And I'm just like, wow, you know, just absolutely amazed. Um, no, I didn't get out of the car because I'm on the motorway, and I'm pulled into the hard shoulder. And something was telling me
Mhm.
not to get out of the car in case I got clipped by a passing car. Now, whether that was the
Mhm.
ETs telling me that in my subconscious, or whether it was just my own head saying, don't get out of the car, you might get knocked out, I don't know. But I have a panoramic sunroof
Mhm.
on my car, and I open up the sunroof. Sunroof slides back, and I take out my phone, and I put the phone up in the air, pointing it at the craft to try and record it. Now, you've seen my
Yeah.
photos and videos. I'm good with the phone. Like, I mean, when I see a craft,
Mhm.
I'm up, I'm bang, I'm photographing, I'm videoing, you know, and I could not press the record button. I could not press the record button. And I used my two hands. I put my two hands on the phone, and with all my strength, I couldn't press the record button. They had to be stopping me, you know, psychologically. They just were not allowing me to record it. And I mean, if I don't know, if I distributed this online, it would have broken the internet. I mean, it was that clear. It was right in front of me, and it was just sitting there. And I remember just saying, "Ah, come on," and just no, couldn't record. Now at this stage, cars started passing, and I'm looking at the cars, and I'm looking at the craft, and I'm like, why is nobody stopping? Why is no? Because I mean, you can see this thing as clear as day. Even it was nighttime, but I mean, it was so
Mhm.
clear. It was right there. Nobody stopped. And I don't know how many cars passed, at least 10. Nobody stopped. And eventually the craft started to move over to the fields over here, and then off down into the distance. And then I took a photo and a quick video. Now I can put it up here, but they're not good. They're certainly not as good as the other stuff that I've captured. And
Mhm.
you know, I'm even reluctant to put them up, but because I've mentioned it, I will put them up. But all you can see is three lights in the distance. They're not good. It's not clear. It's not as good as the other stuff that I've taken, you know. But it stopped me hitting the record button until it was far enough away that it was basically just a blur. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out why nobody was stopping. It just didn't register. Why did nobody stop? You couldn't but see this thing. Anyway, a few weeks later, I remember one of the girls in our group had said to me on a number of occasions, said, "Oh, you gotta look at Dolores Cannon. You've got to read Dolores Cannon. You've got to look at her. She's on YouTube. You've got to read her books." I remember thinking, you know, I was still awful skeptical. I remember thinking, I'm not listening to these old, you know, crazies. You know, I just, you know, there's so many crazies out there. I'm not listening to this crap. You know, I'm still awful skeptical. About 3 weeks after that encounter, I'm sitting down in the house. I'm trying to find something on YouTube to watch on the TV, and up comes Dolores Cannon. So I said, right, look, I'll just stick her on, put her on. And at one point, she's talking about DTs connecting to her through her patients while she has them under hypnosis. And the patient starts talking. I don't know if it's in an extraterrestrial voice or not, but the patient starts talking and said, "Oh yeah, you're the one we have to be talking to." And they said, "We're extraterrestrials and you can ask us anything. We'll tell you everything." And she said, well, don't say that to me because I'm a very curious person. I want to know everything. And she starts talking to them, asking them all these questions. But one of the questions she asked is, why do you abduct people? And they said to her, we don't abduct half as many people as what the public think. Most of that is done by the military. And she said, well, why do you abduct them? Well, you know, we're fixing something, we're curing cancer, or we might be doing some genetic research because you've done so much damage to yourselves with pollution and radiation and microwave energy and hormones and steroids and pollution of the air and the sea and the land, you know, that we're trying to undo a lot of what you've done. And sometimes we'll take a grandmother, a mother, and the granddaughter, and we'll test the genetics, the DNA down through the ages, down through the bloodstream, or down through the genetic code from the grandmother to the granddaughter. And then she said to them, "Well, what do you do? Do you take them out of the car?" And she said, "No, we don't take them out of the car." Or the ET said to her, "We don't take them out of the car. We take car and all." And she said, "Well, would it not be easier just to take the person and not the car?" And she said, "Well, then if we do that, then there's an abandoned car on the highway. Then the police come, and that creates another problem. So we take car and all up into the craft." And Dolores said, "Well, do people not see you taking this car up into your craft?" And she said, "Oh, we do, but we make it so they don't remember." And that instantly clicked with me. That is exactly what they were doing to the people on the motorway. As they were passing, they were either blocking them from seeing them, or they were seeing them, and an instant later, they were making them forget. But people were just passing, and they weren't stopping. And I could see this craft clearly, And I mean, I did photograph it, even though it's a bad photo. It's only three lights. So it was physically there, But it's funny how people see triangular crafts. Like you saw one, I've seen one. There's another one of the guys in our group has seen a triangular craft. It's funny. It seems to be a theme, along with orbs, along with lights. So, have you had any other experiences, Eric, since then? So you've had the experiences at my house when we did our second CE5. You've had that triangular craft with your buddy, which is great that somebody else saw it with you. I mean, that's so reaffirming. Has there been anything else?
Yeah, that was just on that as well. That happened, the physical craft that I saw on the 5th of August, 2022. So
okay, and you've sent me a sketch of that, and I'm going to put that up here too.
Yeah, so if anybody ever sees this video and is able to coordinate that date and maybe get radar information of that day, it could
Or maybe somebody else saw it.
collaborate. Somebody else could have
Maybe
seen
somebody
it.
else
I
saw it in
never
that park.
reported it. Many other people could have seen it for sure. It was a massive, massive thing. Yeah. So yeah, it was mental.
So have you had any other experiences since that night? Have you seen anything else or experienced anything
No,
else?
no, I haven't. That was basically the last main one, to be honest.
Okay.
And I'm sure will have many more in the future now.
Yeah, I have no
But
doubt.
yeah, I think a lot of what people see nowadays could easily be man-made craft as well. And we know from watching a lot of things and doing our own research that you know Americans especially have reverse engineered downed UFO craft. And I suppose the first person to kind of talk about this and bring it out was Bob Lazar, and he said that he worked in Area 51. He had credentials, and he worked. They tried to get in, the smartest people to kind of figure out how these crafts operated. And I think as well that they were purposely downing them. They have scalar longitude energy weapons, and they're able to dismantle or disrupt the ET's craft. And once it hits them, they fall out of the sky like sack spuds and they hit the ground and they just take the tech, and they just keep doing that, rinse and repeat. And as Dr. Stephen Greer said, it's a very hostile way, to be requiring technology. I don't know why they haven't tried to openly do it peacefully, but it just shows the temperament of the ETs as well, that they haven't done anything, and with us killing them
Absolutely.
and taking their tech, and they're still nice to us.
And
They still
killing them.
haven't done it. Yeah, it's so. Yeah, I think they do have the temperament of probably Buddhists, to be honest. They're way more highly evolved than us, both technologically and spiritually and morally.
Absolutely.
So in every way. And it makes sense, because if they're coming here, they're obviously advanced. Also, on the other hand, it could be the fact that they're not ETs and they're actually advanced beings that originated on this earth. That's
Future
also
humans.
a possibility. And apparently that's what came out yesterday on the 13th of November. They had a hearing again to the US Congress.
That's right, the second hearing.
Louis, what's his name again?
Luis Elizondo.
Luis Elizondo, yes. And they were confirming that these craft were all coming out of the water. So there's bases in the ocean. And when you think about it, it makes sense, because, in the ocean, it protects you from all kind of weather, and it's very kind of stable down there. And also you're out of the way from the pesky humans that could be probing. Like we can't get down there, we actually can't. Like, we might be able to get down some bit with a submarine, but we can't dive down there or anything like that. Sure, they only recently are, going to the Titanic, and even at that, it's a Titanic stretch. Thing blew up that submarine, so it's a stretch. Right. Yeah, so they know they're safe down there, and I mean, the Earth is old enough. I mean, it's over 4 billion years old, so it's very possible that intelligent life could have propagated before us, and became advanced.
I often wonder, did they put us here? Because that there's a Stanford professor called Gary Nolan. He's a Nobel Prize nominee, and he's been having extraterrestrial visits since he was a child. And he won his Nobel Prize nomination for was he mapped the human DNA strand. So, seemingly, the human DNA strand works off something called Moore's Law. So, Moore's Law states that every 2 years, the DNA strand doubles in length. And he scientifically mapped it all the way back to the start. And he was able to prove that the human DNA strand is 9.5 billion years old. Now, the Earth is only 4.5 billion years old. So, where do we come from? We did not originate from here, if that's the case.
Yeah, I 100% believe that we were genetically modified over the years, especially when you see that ETs have been around throughout ancient cultures and everything like that. It makes sense. And even the Sumerian culture talks about how we actually did come from ETs, the Anunnaki, and that they made us and they bred us to be slave workers originally, to mine gold for them, mine minerals. But eventually, they kind of grew a conscience, I suppose, and decided to help us start civilization and give us the tools and know how to actually build civilization, engineering, mathematics, all that kind of stuff. And they
You
kind of
hear
started civilization.
you hear that. I've heard that theory quite a bit about the Anunnaki, and they bred us to to be slaves. Why do you think that's true?
Um, because I suppose, the Sumerian culture just came out of nowhere, like usually there's a steady incline of like civilizations developing. The Sumerian culture just came out of nowhere. They knew how to build these massive structures. They had irrigation systems, they had schools, they had a completely functioning city, you know, and they just came out of nowhere. Like, so they, I think they originally did it, probably because they needed the materials, and maybe they didn't kind of see us as inferior beings, and they felt superior. And we'd probably do the same thing maybe to another being, like apes and chimps.
Oh, I'm sure we do a lot worse.
We probably do a lot worse, to be honest. But
Yeah.
it's hard to say. It's only speculation because we didn't live back in those times and we weren't there. So it's all speculation at the end of the day. You know.
Yeah.
But I do feel like humans, we're so diverse, and there's people with all different personalities that I'm sure it was an idea by someone in some race, and then other people were against it and for it. Just like anything, you have different opinions.
I know, to go back to Dolores Cannon, I know she speaks of the ETs, as you say, genetically manipulating us through time, to speed up our evolution.
Mm.
And she said that they said to her that a race cannot just be let off, that they won't progress quick enough to survive. And that's why they had to kind of modify us and kind of jump our evolution, if you like,
Yeah,
several
no, it
times.
makes sense. Yeah.
So that we get to the point where we were self-sufficient and would survive. They gave us tools, I suppose, along the way. But seemingly, she says that this is the way it's been done for millions of years. That species have been developed on planets like this, and when they progress far enough, when they get intelligent enough, when they get technologically advanced enough and peaceful enough, then they can join them. And that we're
Mm.
supposed to be on the precipice of this right now as a
Mm.
race.
Yeah, I honestly think we are, to be honest. It just seems like the way the world is going. Like, obviously, I also think that, we had civilization, human civilization in the past that was more advanced than we are today, both spiritually and technologically. Atlantis being one of them. And I believe, a cataclysm did happen. I think Graham Hancock talks about this theory of the Younger Dryas, and
Yeah,
basically a comet about 12,500 years ago struck the Earth. Not once, but multiple times. It kept coming around. I think it maybe hit 3 or 4 times, but the big one hit in North America. And at the time, a lot of the Earth was covered in huge amount of ice. And this ice now was like, you're talking miles and miles in height. So this large hot comet came in, hit North America, completely instantly vaporized that water. That water rushed through the land, destroyed everything in its path, killed the mammoths, I'd say, killed the saber-tooths, killed a lot of animals, and destroyed a lot of human civilization that was probably there at the time, including Atlantis. Now, it destroyed it, but I don't think it killed everyone. And there's books, I read a book, Survivors of Atlantis, and there was survivors, and they went and to new places around the world and restarted civilization. And that's why I think, you look at the Incas in South America, the Mayans, you look in Africa, in Egypt, across Asia, all over the world, they have pyramids. In every continent, there's pyramids, and they all have the exact same building structure. The exact same technology was used to build them, and we can't replicate this technology today. We actually can't build it with our cranes or anything like that. So they were obviously had a knowledge that they were passing down through generations, but again, we lost it, just like most things.
I believe I heard somewhere that the Japanese tried to make a smaller version of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and they weren't able to do it.
Really?
Yeah, I heard that recently. I can't remember where I heard it, but I definitely heard that. But also, there's a great documentary on YouTube called BAM, Builders of the Ancient Mythologies. And they go into all the megalithic sites. But they talk about the 3 pyramids in Giza and the other 3 pyramids. I think it's in Peru. It's in South America anyway, And the difference is, like, obviously the pyramids in Giza in Egypt, they're straight. But the pyramids in South America, they're stepped, okay? But seemingly both sets align directly under Orion's belt. Both sets of 3, they're right under Orion's belt. The 3 of them, I think to the square meter, and the bases of the 3 pyramids in Giza and the base of the 3 pyramids in, if it's Peru, I think it's Peru, they're identical. And the archaeologist, and he's an engineer and an archaeologist in this documentary, says the only way that could be possible, that the bases of both sets of pyramids are identical, is if they had the same architect. 8, 10, 12,000 years ago, 10,000 miles apart. Columbus hadn't crossed the ocean at that stage.
Yeah, and also I think as well, I remember the circumference of the Egyptian pyramids, when they did the calculations or something, it is actually the exact circumference of the Earth. So how did they know the exact circumference of the Earth? And, that makes no sense. So,
and there's a lot of pi all over the pyramid as well. Pi is used everywhere. And there's some other number. Oh, it's like a universal number. I can't remember the number, but they talk about it in BAM. Something like that. But it was only discovered like in the last couple of 100 years, but yet they've used this number to build the pyramid, basically.
Yeah,
I can't think of the number, but yeah, it's I mean, it's crazy. Like, and some of the bricks are like 70, 80, 100 tons, and I know the quarry was hundreds of miles away. I mean, it's not even possible. And actually, Graham Hancock that you were talking about, I really like Graham Hancock. He talks about these rectangular pillars, and there's quite a number of them in the center of the big pyramid in Giza, and they make kind of they're up around the halfway point, but each of these pillars, these rectangular pillars, they're all cut identically, and they're all 70 tons each. And he said the way they're inserted and the way they're lifted up into the middle of the pyramid, he said a crane couldn't do it.
And I always thought as well that these pyramids, after seeing enough information, I kind of came to the conclusion that, because a lot of people thought that these were tombs, that they built these for a very well-off pharaoh, but these were not tombs. They never found pharaohs inside these pyramids. And I later realized that these were actually energy plants, Well,
Graham Hancock said that. And he also said that there's an energy coming off, especially the main pyramid, and they can detect it, but they don't know what's creating it or where it's coming from.
Yeah. I think it's multiple things. Like it's a combination of multiple different things acting on each other. So at the time of its construction, the River Nile flowed much more closely to the Egyptian pyramids, but obviously over thousands of years, it migrated away. But at the time, there was huge flowing River Nile. So they had a large volume of water, and that water went underneath the plateau of the pyramids. And they had viaducts, which were like, small uh, chambers that led into the bottom of the pyramids. So the water went right into these small viaducts, and all that water rushing in obviously created a lot of energy, but it created a lot of sound because it was compressing it then in the main chambers that they had in the center of the pyramid. So that sound resonant frequency was vibrating through the entire pyramid. And the shape of the pyramid, I'm guessing, focused all of that sound energy frequency to the tipping point. And the pyramid would actually, at the time of construction, had a golden block, complete gold block triangle
At the
on the
top.
tip.
Yes. Okay.
That's
I remember hearing that.
Removed, obviously. Yeah, obviously someone robbed it or something like that. But it was also as well, the pyramid was coated in complete white limestone. So it was completely white, not golden like you see today, but completely white. And I think that it's, from what I've seen, is it reflected the sun really well. So it was getting energy from the sun. It was using sound frequency energy from the water getting pushed in. And then it was converging all of that energy into one little point. And obviously that was creating a mass amount of energy, probably free energy that they could somehow tap into, and their society was run off of.
12,000 years ago. And we can't do it today.
Yeah. Well, the pyramids in Egypt, they were 5,000. But the ones they probably had them in Atlantis as well. They still don't know where Atlantis was.
But didn't Graham Hancock say that he reckons that the pyramids in Giza are a lot older than 5,000 years ago? I think maybe I'm wrong now, but I thought he said maybe it was closer to 10 or 12 or something like that. I know they're a lot older than what they initially thought.
Yeah, I never heard that now, but I've definitely heard that the Sphinx itself, it was definitely older than the pyramids itself. So
or maybe that's
the Sphinx predates the construction of the pyramid. Yeah, and they did say, I think it was about 10,000. Yeah, so you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, and they guessed that as well through, I think there was certain type of water erosion on the Sphinx. Some guy called HUC, I forget his first name, but he studied this and basically determined that it had to be at this point in time 10,000 years ago. So,
wow. Okay. I suppose I'm a little conscious of time. We've been here a while, and maybe just before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you. So I suppose the whole point of doing these podcasts is, because both you and I have had experiences, and as you know, I've had a lot of contact, a lot of encounters with ETs, which I'll talk about as the podcast goes on. But I mean, ET disclosure is definitely happening now, and I don't know. It's my belief that certainly within the next 12 months, every human being on Earth is going to know we're not alone. And I do feel it's going to frighten a lot of people. Especially maybe middle-aged people upwards. I think the younger people will have more of a handle on it, but I think older people will. It is going to frighten a lot of people, and I know I was afraid of it when I first started having my encounters, until I got over myself, until I felt the connection with them and felt the love from them, And the whole point of this podcast is just to try and give people a bit of confidence that it's hopefully, that they'll see maybe through our experiences and other people's experiences that it's a positive thing that the ETs are here, or at least I feel that. What's your take on that, Eric? How do you feel about your experiences? Have they been positive or negative or both? Or
Yeah, I mean, I've actually thought about this deeply, you know, and I definitely think, without a doubt, they're 100% positive. But of course, with the universe being so big, and you know, like I think I've seen something recently. For every grain of sand on Earth, in all the sand in all the beaches, for every grain, one sand speck represents a billion planets.
A sun with
So,
the solar system or something like that. Yeah. So
so
I mean
each
that's
grain of
just an
sand
astronomical number.
represents.
I mean,
It's in you might
obviously there's more life out there. I mean, I
yeah,
mean we've
but
seen
that
it here.
means yeah, that means, you know, there has to be negatives as well. We were actually living proof, because you
We
know
are the
they were
negatives.
obviously viewing us and saying that humans are negative, you know. So we're living proof
We,
that that is possible.
we are the evil
But
aliens. Yeah, for sure.
exactly, yeah. But I do believe, you know, we are at a crossroads now, and we've come to a pinnacle, you know, that, you know, we're going to have to wake up. And it's absolutely necessary, not only for ourselves, but all life on planet. Like, we're destroying species like no tomorrow. There's destruction happening, air pollution, environmental destruction. We're depleting our resources very heavily. The population is increasing and growing. We have conflicts around the world. We have nuclear weapons. So there's a lot of like unstable things that we're doing. And in order to be a civilization that continues into the future and that is multiplanetary, we're going to need to be sustainable, without a doubt. And the ETs know that, of course, and they are trying to assist us. But I think for a mass awakening to happen, that will really change people's perspectives. You
Mhm.
know, just like I think the COVID thing did, a worldwide event that will have hopefully a positive effect on the human race, not a negative like COVID. And I believe the elites and the people that have been keeping this kind of information secret are maybe planning to spin this in a negative way, and maybe, you know, doing a false flag alien invasion. So, you know,
Yeah, I've
I
heard that
think
theory.
yeah, there's a guy, he's a what's his name, von Braun.
Oh,
He's a Nazi
Werner von
scientist.
Braun. Yeah,
Werner von Braun, yes, yes. So he actually he came over to the United States after the World War II. He came over with other Nazi scientists
he developed the
in
V2
something
rocket.
called Operation Paperclip was the name of it. And they came over, exonerated them, said, "Yeah, that's all good. You doing all the Nazi stuff if you just come work for us." And they set up NASA. There's pictures with literally him and JFK, and they set up the space program that landed the Americans on the moon. So Nazis helped the Americans land on the moon, which nobody talks about,
That's
but it's
right.
true.
That's right.
Um, but he said on his deathbed um, that the last card that they'll use is the false flag alien invasion,
Yeah,
you know, and
and it's all a lie.
maybe COVID was one of them, and the alien card is the last one. And I think
Mm.
now, with everything going on in the world with Trump, you know, he's not one of the puppets in office. He's kind of does his own thing, and they might be like, "Look, we got to pull something out of the hat here," and they might try and do something, you know,
Well, let's hope not.
because
Mm.
the worst thing that can come out of this, if they do it, is they create a false flag alien invasion, and people believe it because it scares the living daylights out of them. And then they start having UN conferences and go, okay, let's band together, forget our differences, forget wars, let's put all our military might and spending, and let's attack this invasion. Let's attack this alien threat that's threatening us.
It
We
should be the
need, and
worst
it'll create
possible
a
thing
one
we could
world
do.
government. Yeah, it'll create a one world government. It'll create more fear and allow them to control more. And that is a never ending, endless war, as Dr. Stephen Greer. That will go on for infinity.
And it will
And they
also
will
piss the
have
ETs
ultimate
off.
control. and it'll piss the ETs off. So
Yeah.
that's why we need to wake up, and that's why we need to have these conversations and this awareness to realize, no, they are positive, they're here to help, and they're here to assist us in our next stage of our evolution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, buddy. Well, I think we'll wrap it up with that. Thank you so much for being here, for talking to us and sharing your experiences. You know, I know it's not the easiest thing to do, and at least times are getting better now. It's out there more. It is easier to talk about. You know, people aren't seen as the tinfoil hat people anymore. You know, the UFO community. So you know, it's been a lot of positive steps. You know, in the right direction. And as you said earlier, you know, we've had where the US have had the second congressional UFO hearing. I don't like the word UAP. I won't use it. I refuse to use it. You know,
Yeah, I
they
don't like it either.
they bastardized the UFO community and the UFO term so much, and I'm proud of it, and I'll continue using UFO. I don't like UAP.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing. You know, they're trying to rebrand it. You know, oh, first it was Pepsi, now it's cola, or whatever. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. Anyway, listen, thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward
My
to
pleasure,
seeing you again,
Horace.
buddy. And you know, we might have you back maybe in the not too distant future.
I'd love to. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you again. Thanks, Eric.
All
See you,
right.
buddy.
Thanks,
Bye.
Howard. See you later.
Bye.
Bye bye.